So, the process of making the show Invoke hangable was something that I would consider to be a little less traditional than what another artist might do. When I presented my artwork to the director of the Anchor House of Artists, all of it was on paper and it was loose paper. And essentially, a more traditional artist, when they're going to have a solo exhibition with the majority of it being on paper, would frame their art pieces. And I'm not as much of a traditional artist, and I've also found that frames are somewhat of a liability. They're very difficult to transport unless you take the time to wrap them in bubble wrap everywhere you go. Even if you go, you know, 2 miles down the road, you're still liable to scratch or break your frames. And essentially, to have something professionally framed or framed so that it's archival, you definitely have to spend a lot of money. A piece about as big as 9 by 12 or even 11 by 14, depending on how fancy you want your frame to be, can cost $100 or more, large pieces included, and even less archival frames are just as expensive. So I wanted to take the more economical route and less traditional route and mount my paper artwork onto what's called wood panel cradles. Now, another reason I wanted to do this is the wood panel cradles, they come off the wall about 1.25 inches, and so that gives the artwork more dimension. And since a lot of the art pieces here have a spiritual or mythological meaning behind them, I wanted them to be able to engage with the viewers, so that, like a lot of icons, um, they're definitely coming off the wall. They're trying to engage with you. So that is another thing I wanted to communicate by using the wood panel cradles. Now, the process of mounting the artwork was somewhat cumbersome and difficult, and I encountered a lot of risk taking when I was doing it. So essentially, with the wood panel cradles, first you have to use a sealant, and this sealant was a golden product, and the sealant is there essentially so that the pigments do not seep through the wood. So the wood is protected over time. And after everything is sealed, that's when you use an acid-free glue. Again, you don't want the pigments to, run over time and get into the wood. So it's just even extra protection. And you don't want the glue to eat away at the artwork itself. So that's why you use an acid-free glue, and you spread it on. I used a fan brush, and as evenly and as perfectly as possible, and then you use your hands to make sure that everything is perfectly lined up. You don't It's a very time sensitive process, in that the glue dries very quickly on the wood despite having used a sealant, and if things aren't lined up absolutely perfectly, you have very little time to move that paper, because it sticks right away and there's not a lot of wiggle room. And as soon as it's on there, moving it is you're liable to end up ripping your paper. I would use my hands to do one side at a time, because if you do it all at once and it's not lined up, then you're in trouble. And then I would use a foam roller and my hands to smooth out any bubbles or wrinkles that might occur. And then I would sit them on the ground as flat as possible with as many heavy books as I could for 24 to 72 hours, more like 72 hours, to really make sure that everything dried as flat as possible. In this video, you're getting a sense of what all of these pieces are going to look like together. I'm really excited to actually have all these pieces in a cohesive exhibition. I think that they're going to look really great, and I'm so thankful to have a solo show at a local gallery. It's going to be in January. The reception is going to coincide with Arts Night Out in Northampton. If you aren't able to make it for any reason, there definitely will be documentation of the actual event that I will post on Patreon only, so you'll be able to have access to that. So thank you so much for learning a little bit more about my process, and I look forward to showing you more. Thanks so much. Bye.